Hello. Hello. Welcome to the show. Oh shit. Camera's covered because I'm very professional. Hi friends. Um, Today is going to be all about rounding off the transcendent abilities because last time we figured out how the fuck transcendence actually works. And so now I can feel a little more confident making some moves about it. Um, I have also redone a little bit of the look of the character sheets to get them to be a little bit less crap. Um, so I'm feeling a little bit happier with them. I got some little moon shaped pips. I've got this nice gray bar thing going on that's straight up ripped off from John Harper's Blades sheets. And then I did a little bit of repositioning of everything. I added a little eclipse marker for when you're in eclipse. We got our transcendence clock, armor uses recovery, etc. all laid out. Um, and then the big thing today is these ones right here, doing some transcendent abilities. And so all the other playbooks are going to look like crap. They're going to be the old versions. But I'm just going to use this one as a template and redo all the text uh, and farm it back out, all the updates out to the other playbooks in kind of my own time. And yeah, I developed a few of these moves, so I've got some here to show. And then from this point forward, I'm just going to try to make some more moves like these for the other playbooks. Might come back and do one more for the Time Traveler if I decide that there's a certain format of move that I am going to do for all of them. So, Mr. Worst, I decided on using Blades after playing Blades, and originally it was going to be like an Apocalypse World thing. But the main reason I'm using Blades is that before having ever played it or understood what the fuck Blades was about, I had this notion of having a as inspired by watching Adam play Persona 4, I had this idea of having a game where there were phases to the game where you had the going to school bit, and then you had your free time bit, and then you had the dungeon fighty bit. And so I had this three mode notion, which I was gonna have to build a lot of that stuff beforehand when it was in Apocalypse World. But then and there was that early playtest where it was all Apocalypse World style, and we were just playing in the and essentially the idea there was to have a set of moves for the obligation phase where you were crappy teens. A bunch of the downtime actually was going to end up being very similar to Blade's downtime of more montagey, and then that there would be a fighty kind of more crunchy bit where you're actually in amongst the baddies fighting them. And so we did a little bit of playtest with that initial concept, and I was really not happy with it. There were lots of problems. The moves that I had written up for the obligation phase were bad. They were helpful and informative as I moved into the later stages where I had switched to working in Blades, but I really wasn't happy with how they were playing because they were very reactionary. It created weird framing at the table. It just didn't jive, and so after having played Blades, I was like, oh yeah, this could totally work. It does a lot of the stuff that I was trying to do already, so I just need to adapt this existent structure instead of make it, entirely by myself. Which, given that this is my first game that I'm ever making, that would have been really, really challenging. It would have taken me an incredibly long time to come to the place that I'm at now without just being able to steal from Blades and John Harper's excellent work. And yeah, so all of that was a stepping stone into the stuff I made later, and in the principles that I was striving for in that early iteration of the game remain in this one. They're just embodied in different parts of the rules and mechanics. And so that's how we got to where we are in brief. But yeah, today is going to be all about these transcendent abilities for the characters. We also have some transcendent abilities for the crew. Right now they're very basic, but I might even just leave it like this for now. I think like having these two options is a perfectly fine place to start in playtest. We have a bunch of other special abilities for the crew. I'm just going to rename these crew abilities. Just as a... Right, we've got our like shrine move, we've got some other moves, and blah, blah, blah. We got a bunch of stuff to do. And these are all powerful and apply in both phases. And then we have some more mechanistic, just like get some bonuses moves. And it's kind of like taking the existing set of things that are available in Blades and dividing them into these categories is more the notion. So anything that's like directly mechanically powerful is going to live in transcendent moves or transcendent abilities. And then the other kind of more fiction-y ones or downtime related ones are going to live in the like core abilities. And that's kind of my framing going from one game to the other. So I'm like medium satisfied with where the time traveler is at, and just having like 2 or 3 of these abilities per playbook is totally lots for me. At this stage, I think it's totally fine to just have like a couple to pick from. You have access to all of the moves in the game by way of the Veteran Advance. And so, right, like this can pull from other playbooks, transcendent abilities as well. So 2 or 3 per playbook across the 7 playbooks means we have between 14 and 21 moves, which should be enough to satisfy folks for playtest purposes. Or they can just come up with their own and let me know what those are, and then I will gleefully hack them up and steal them. So, yeah, it should be alright. So, for all the other playbooks, we got to make these transcendent abilities. And there is one other kind of move that I considered, which I came up with last time, which we might do one of for each playbook. So, and the idea with this one would be that this is like a default thing that they all get, potentially. Or at least it would be the suggested default option. Actions made to directly protect another do not advance your Transcendence clock. Which this sheet doesn't have because it's an old sheet, but here's your Transcendence clock. Every time you make a move, every time you do a thing, while in Transcendence, boom, 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 boom. Essentially, you only get 6. There are some ways to get around that. You can use your links to refresh the clock somewhat, but yeah, this is essentially your resource. This is how much you get. And so the idea with this other ability is to say, situationally, you get more provided that you're doing things that align with this like idiom of the playbook. So that's something I'm considering. So we'll call this ability 1. So initially I was like, yeah, they'll just all like have this by default, and then they'll have other moves. But I think this is still worthy of being a move, because that they have to spend things choosing. Because overall in this game, I don't like the idea of having too many things like this. I think one of these per playbook is lots. And that not every playbook even needs one, so... Right, these like special core mechanics for a given playbook. They give each playbook a little bit more identity than maybe exists in Blades, but that's not necessarily a good thing, right? Like the versatility of them, I think, and the like blurring of those lines is actually helpful. It's beneficial. So, anyways. Okay, we got to go back to these ugly playbooks. So, all right, I've got like a couple abilities otherwise in Transcendent moves. We have Giant Woman for the fusion, which is that when you transcend, your scale increases and your effect level changes accordingly. So in situations where scale matters, the fusion is cool and able to do better stuff. And then, do I have any others? Nope, that's it. That's all I've got. The Unlikely Hero, I was considering like, oh yeah, I gotta give them stronger moves, but that's not actually how we want to do it. We've already baked in their extra strength here in Hero's Destiny, so where they get to have potency when fighting manifestations of darkness and have +1 die when rolling Eclipse, so they're already like super heroic and badass. So that's cool. So we'll give them some regular style Transcendence moves. It might be also that they only pull Transcendent moves from the other playbooks. That is something I am considering doing. We might not give the Unlikely Hero any of these moves. That's one other thing to maybe think about. So I'm just going to move this one over. Behave yourself, stranger. Okay, so let's start with the Guardian, because she's already got one chosen out. Sorry, I'm about to cough. Blah. All this difficulty of having a body. So we already have actions made to directly protect another do not advance your Transcendence clock. It might be that this only exists in this playbook. It might be that a bunch of the playbooks have moves like this where they can stay transcended longer. And like, you know, other people could pull that as well, but it would be playing against type to do so. Oh, right, and that's the other thing. Haha. Unlikely Hero has an 8 clock, whereas everyone else has a 6 clock. That was the other big change we did. And then there's stuff like the Fusion gets 2 armor charges, and potentially 2 special armor charges. I haven't decided, but they have more access to being like tough. And I imagine that when Transcended, they're a bit of a they're totally a lead from the front kind of playbook. So I want to give them some very like Cutter Gunlugger-esque stuff about just being a fucking beast, smashing things. And mostly in terms of offense, right? Whereas defense would fall to the Guardian, who has stuff like the reduced penalties from harm, and someone else has the recovery move, and the Time Traveler has the recovery move, and also some more defensive stuff, right? Where they can bail people out because they have time magic. So you can push yourself to do one of the following: suddenly appear next to your enemy ready to strike, or pull someone out of the flow of time, removing them from harm's way. I should go over these moves that I've already made just to make some stuff clear. And then they also have reflexes. So they're kind of they have some good like direct fighting options. I want to give the Guardian, you know, this like very protective move, and then maybe a move that is again very like direct. And then Fusion has this move around scale, which I think is cool. And I would like for them to again have a very like direct and very aggressive move. Outsider as well, we're going to give a bunch of aggressive stuff to. Stranger is going to have some weird supporty nonsense, as will the Enigma. Because the Enigma is always, you know, just like Elf's character in our playtest, is always kind of helping in this aloof way. So I want to give the Transcendence some stuff around that, like some sneaky, mysterious bullshit. And we might go super dark with some of the Outsider abilities as well. So it's kind of a high-level view of what we're going to be working on today. Yeah, like, and here's the other thing that we could do, right, is we could take a really standardized approach with this if we want to, where we say the Transcendence moves are, like, have very narrow bands of categories, where it's like a Tempest or, like, this Time Magic one, push yourself style move, where it's like you can push yourself to do this and this. So they get like one of those. They get one of this thing like I have in the Guardian where they can ignore, or they don't count it towards their Transcendence clock when they do a certain type of action. And then they could have like a, like I put Clock Stopper and Giant Woman in the same kind of category of being like a narrow band in which they are super badass. So like the fusion gets to be really big and can like, like catch the steel beam that's going to crush everyone, or wrestle the big monsters, stuff like that. The time traveler just gets to like be the fastest. So something about like how they are the most something. Right? Those are certainly all moves that fit into this category of transcendent abilities. It might be that we like stick very narrowly to that. Which then moves me to a further question of like, well, then do we allow people to take moves from other playbooks? Maybe the transcendent abilities that you have access to are really narrow, and you only get to buy from your playbook for those. You can get core abilities from any playbook, but then these transcendent ones you have a very limited pool for. But because like, the reason I say that is like, why would I want to take like 3 different moves that are about benefits I can get by pushing myself? Because I only have 9 stress ever, right? Like I can only ever do so much with that. Yeah. Zoe Claire, I definitely like, as I was kind of talking about earlier, I really like the idea of maybe just there are no transcendent moves for the unlikely hero. They have to pull from other playbooks, but that no one else can, and that reflects this whole idea of them being like taught by the others. And in fact, yeah, that's got to be what it is. And so this is like something about training or student or something, but like, disciple. What is the wording for veteran on the other playbook? Choose a transcendent ability from another source. Great. So they'll get to have multiples of those. I'm just going to... This is like all in the wrong place, and so I'm just going to delete it from this. Any visual clutter that's getting in the way right now, I just want to get rid of. Okay, and I can also rewrite this move now because we know how Transcendence works. So you may spend your own links. Spend links on your sheet. Links on from your playbook. Spend links from your playbook on other characters. The dice pool is based on your remaining links. Otherwise, they made the roll. Cool. Easy peasy. So, yeah, we have here that we can, let's see. So for this character, they can always ask a player what their character is really feeling. They'll have some other move that I haven't filled in yet. They have a move about running into danger, which gives them an extra XP trigger, and then gives other people bonuses to helping you. Spend links from your playbooks on other characters. So essentially our links can actually matter and be used. And then we can take veteran after we deactivate only mortal. And what only mortal says is that you cannot have special armor, you cannot transcend. You get an additional action during downtime. You get +1 die when rolling social link, and there's a trigger for losing it, which you traded out for Hero's Destiny. So when only you can save one of your friends from fatal harm or severe consequence, and you succeed, you lose this move and gain Hero's Destiny. Hero's Destiny being you have embraced your heroic destiny. You gain potency when fighting manifestations of darkness, and gain +1 die when rolling Eclipse. So we go all hero mode, and then we start pulling Transcendence moves from elsewhere. Oh, yeah, and immediately gain 1. Mark 1 Transcendent ability on your playbook. So as soon as we do that, we get a Transcendent ability, because everyone, I think, is going to start with 1 and 1. So we don't, because we can't. But then once we unlock it, we get our point that we're owed, essentially. And yeah, we'll see how this actually plays out. I'm curious to see whether or not my intent is clear enough in here that folks find this enjoyable to play or whatever. But the way I imagine the Unlikely Hero working is that you can play it like Steven Universe style, where like midway through you kind of do actually unlock your powers and start doing stuff, or you can go like full Madoka, where you just never fucking ever unlock this move. You like never Hero's Destiny, and you're just like the little like mortal waif that follows the crew around and contributes, but by being like the mascot, right? So I want that to be an option, but that it'd be good enough in that process. So I think being able to pair this, you can the +1 die when rolling social link and getting an extra downtime action for free all the time. Then also having this is really strong. So you like give people social links really effectively, and then if anyone ever gives you social links, they're like universally spendable. So you can spend links from your playbook on other characters. So like someone else believing in you allows you to then believe in someone to make them believe in themselves and do cool things. So you have like you're like the... Honestly, this playbook ends up being kind of like the spider. Which I find really funny. You're kind of like the mastermind playstyle, but... Move to heart to heart? Okay, yeah, we gotta call this heart to heart. With a number 2, just to be cheesy as. So, yeah, I think in terms of like manipulating the like mechanic-y bit, you're this like you're like the dealer in a game of poker or something, or like someone handling the chips. You're like the banker. So you have this like tally thing that you're working with, and you're like managing resources for the crew. And you're able to like last ditch save people, and then like weirdly enable them with moves like Worth Saving. So when you foolishly run into danger and no one comes to help you, mark experience. So this is like, it encourages you to foolishly run into danger, but then other people get to more easily resist consequences that you suffer. So this is a way to just like, if we all know that something bad is going to happen, it's like, we know that when we walk into this room something bad's going to happen, then it's always like, well, guess who runs into it? It's going to be you. But then it's like easier to absorb that. And then, yeah, exactly, right? We can help people escape darkness. There's a reason fictionally for your character to... Okay, you have this fucking question, right? What are your character's unmet needs? Like, you just actually get to ask straight up, like, what people need. They have a bunch of really cool, powerful stuff. So, yeah, I think this is a good way to run this. We get Whoops. What is this? Choose a transcendent ability from another source. Anyways, long story short, this is what's up for this playbook. Cool. We're done. Unlikely hero, you're done. Get out of here. It's over. So we only need to design 6 times 2 to 3, so between 12 and 18 moves. Much easier. All right, my brilliant co-designer Mads is here, so I can just take a back seat. Mads is going to design the game from here on out. We've got Time Traveler done. We're on Guardian. Yeah. So I'm still like on the fence as to whether or not this kind of move should even exist. Because it's really, really strong. We'll see. We'll see. Also, I hope the zoom level is good for everyone. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more because we're really just focused on this one thing. And this will actually help me pay attention to what I should be looking at. I'm like, I don't have much of a voice today. Feels bad. Maybe there's more pollen in the air or something. All right, so we have this move about directly protecting other people. And this is beyond resisting things on people's behalf, because that's never going to cost you. It's always action rolls specifically. So this needs to mean that, like, rather than resisting things, the way that this gets you advantage is that you can claw the story forward while